Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07. It's O'Connor and Company this Wednesday morning, and I want everyone to know that 1 week from this moment, we will know who the new governor of Virginia will be. That is, of course, unless the CIA operative Abigail Spanberger has hidden votes somewhere that still have to be counted. Oh, don't worry, everyone. This is normal. It's going to take us several days to count the ballots until we really know who won. Everyone just keep calm. It's normal. It's how we do things. They might be saying that a week from now. Or on the other hand, Republicans can just overwhelm the polls and turn out the way you did last year for President Trump. If you do that, it won't even be close. And if it's not close, they can't cheat. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. At 6:35, we'll talk to Cal Thomas. It's 7:05. Dr. Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation. He has a huge announcement. 8:05, the House leader for the Republicans down in Richmond, Terry Gilgore, on the latest with this gerrymandering fiasco. All that coming up. It's Larry O'Connor. Hey, look, it's Julie Gunlock. Oh, my God. You're Julie Gunlock. Good morning,
Good
Julie.
Morning. Good morning.
I'm all verklempt. I'm so excited. You're like that that insane Jennifer Welch person.
Oh, yes. Just exactly like her.
We're going to talk about her. This is the liberal podcaster, reality star turned podcaster named Jennifer Welch. Her podcast, I had never heard of her podcast until like a week ago, and all of a sudden it's everywhere. I've had it, which is perfect. She's got the straight blonde hair, the black rimmed glasses, the angry look on her face. I think she's actually had her face, she's had a lot of work done. And I think her last piece of work that she had on her face surgically puts her in an angry expression at all times.
Yeah,
it's like that's her resting outraged face.
Yes.
And the name of the podcast is I've Had It, which is, exactly how you're going to appeal to the male voters in America.
Oh, yeah.
Democrats, trust me. That's what we want. But you're the conservative antidote.
Oh, am I?
You are the conservative antidote.
Without all the work, without all the facial
Of course, without any of it.
alterations.
That's what I mean by the antidote. You're the opposite of all of it, except for the blonde hair, of course.
Right.
And so you need to come out. You need to come out and start sort of pushing back. That said, let's talk about a huge story yesterday. Listen, first of all, our prayers are with everyone in Jamaica. As the sun rises today, we're going to see what the damage is and the aftermath is. Melissa bore down yesterday, right around sundown, right before sundown. It reached the strength of Category 5 there. It hit the Bahamas around Category 2. It swept across eastern Cuba at around Category 3 to 4. But when it slammed Jamaica, it was Cat 5. In some of the early shots, it looks devastating. And let's face it, Jamaica doesn't have the strongest concrete-based infrastructure there. A lot of people live in, shack-like structures. It could be really bad. So obviously, everyone in that island is in our prayers. Jamaica native Winsome Sears, American citizen running for governor, she put out a really heartfelt message to her country of origin yesterday afternoon as well. Let's see what happens there. But I begin our thoughts with Jamaica, number one, because we should all be praying for the people there. But number two, in any other news cycle, we would be inundated with people saying, well, there you go. It's because you drive an SUV. There you go. Those Ford Explorers are what causes these hurricanes. And first of all, there's never been any science to back up that kind of messaging, even though they've been trying to tell us that since Katrina. 20 years ago, they were telling us that it was climate change that caused big storms. Al Gore, has been telling us that as well. But then, of course, when we went through a phase of global cooling, then it went from global warming to climate change because they said, well, either way, whether we're getting hot or whether we're getting cold or whether we're not changing at all, it's still because of carbon emissions. And whether we have bad storms or not, it's still because of carbon emissions. And I think everybody's seeing through that fraud now, right? Right. And in fact, if you look at the calendar, it's late October, almost November, and we're having our first major hurricane in the Caribbean, really major hurricane. That's very late in the schedule, in the calendar. Hurricane season starts, mid to early September. This is pretty late in the schedule. So it just doesn't pass the smell test anymore when people try that. Oh, don't get me wrong. CNN still had people on trying to say that. But there's something shifted here. Something's turned, Julie Gunlock. And the most impressive evidence of that turn is from none other than Microsoft founder and now so-called philanthropist Bill Gates. Bill Gates yesterday issued a memo and went on a minor press tour to announce his newfound approach to the climate change so-called crisis. He has said now, yes, the Earth seems to be warming, and yes, there seems to be a connection to man-made causes, but, and I'm going to quote him now, he has a different view, and he is adjusting his strategies for dealing with climate change. The world has a chance to refocus on the metric that should count even more than emissions and temperature change. Instead, we should focus on improving lives. He says that climate change will not be the end of civilization, that there's not a doomsday clock, that we're not just 12, 10, 8, 6 years from forever ending our planet. He says instead we should probably focus on making people's lives better and helping people out if we're going to be philanthropists instead of the climate change nonsense. And frankly, he's saying what conservatives have been saying for decades now.
Yes. I mean, all of this reminds me, I know I used this example before on the show, but, my poor father who, in the mid-'80s was told he had to look out for his cholesterol. And then the doctor said, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't eat this. And I always go back to the eggs. My poor father. My dad loves omelets. He's always loved breakfast. He loved omelets. And then for 20 years, he had these disgusting egg white omelets with nothing in them, And then, in the early aughts or mid-aughts, the CDC or FT or whatever it was, HHS comes out with this new ruling that says cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern. That's an actual quote. Cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern, right? And they had a whole new study where eggs are good.
I love the term nutrient of concern.
Right. And I swear my father, for weeks, couldn't get over it. He was like, how about 20 years I didn't have an omelet that and it's sort of this, oops, we were wrong, right? And you think about what Bill Gates has done to fuel this hysteria, to create these government regulations to really keep people in poverty, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just like, oops, I was wrong. I'm changing my mind now. What?
Oh, yeah. No, it's palpable. It's very real. We're going to play some of the audio from Bill Gates and some of the analysis. There's a great little mini podcast from one of the journalists at the Free Press, who like a lot of people who write at the Free Press, used to, follow the liberal dogma, and then they got awokened at one point, conservatively woke, or at least to the right woke. This person was a climate activist, and then she saw through the facade. And the biggest issue here is people in Africa, people in Micronesia, in Asia, in developing third world countries who were in poverty. They were kept from developing the way Western nations developed. How did Western nations develop? Well, with fossil fuels and with industry and with manufacturing. And all of these emerging countries were told, oh, no, you can't do that because of climate change. And so you had to still live in your huts and burn, animal dung and deal with mosquitoes that give you malaria and kill tens of thousands a year. Without any of these environmentalists saying maybe we should worry about the human beings here instead of worrying about carbon emissions. It was devastating what these people did, and now it appears Bill Gates is leading the charge back to sanity, or he's just very cynically going where the money is. Either way, this is an opportunity that Republicans and conservatives should, dare I say, pounce on. We'll get to that in a moment. First, though, it's 5:15 WMAL.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
Bill Gates now says this: climate change will not lead to humanity's demise. People will be able to live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future. Climate realists like Judith Curry, Steve Koonin, Michael Schellenberger, Alex Epstein, Roger Pike Jr., and Bjorn Lomborg have been saying this exact thing for years. that climate change is not an existential threat, and that the singular obsession with carbon emissions has distracted us from solving real problems. But those scientists and writers were ostracized. They were censored on social media, protested, and in some cases, pushed out of their jobs. They were mocked as climate deniers for saying the same thing Bill Gates is finally admitting today. I'm glad Bill Gates has come around to common sense. Yes, the planet is warming, but it's not the biggest problem we face, and it's something humans are more than capable of adapting to. We've already adapted to 1.3 degrees of warming over the past 150 years, a period that also happens to be the most prosperous and productive time in human history. I welcome this shift to common sense, even though the climate doomerism Gates helped create has fueled a mental health crisis among young people. Half of young people polled by Lancet say they felt sad, anxious, angry, and helpless because of climate change. A 2025 study found that 1 in 5 young people in the U.S. were afraid to have children because of climate fears. I welcome this shift from Gates, even though for decades developing countries in Africa have been forced to jump through absurd hoops to meet the West's net zero goals, when we know that developing with fossil fuels is cheaper, faster, and more reliable than the renewable projects we pressured them to build to make ourselves feel virtuous.
It's a great analysis there from Lucy Biggers. She describes herself as a former climate activist, and now she covers the climate beat at the Free Press. And you heard that absolute devastation to young millennials and the Zoomers, the Generation Z, who were inundated with this doomsday scenario. They are in depression, they have anxiety, they don't want to have children because they think they're destroying the planet, and it's all because of the Bill Gateses of the world. They shouldn't get away with this 180 without at least an apology, if not actual repairs to what they've damaged. And let's not forget what they did to the third world, who had to, as you just heard, jump through stupid net zero hoops when they could barely, do basic agriculture like the Western world. We, as a country,
as a developing nation, we burned coals, cut down trees, cleared land, did everything that we tell the third world, obviously not a politically correct thing to say, but the third world, which still exists today, we tell them, you can't do that. You can't do the same things the United States and every developed country in this world has done in order to develop and improve the lives of their own people. We put them through terrible hoops. Not only that, but the fear-mongering of things like GMOs, the fear-mongering of some technology that has been developed that can make the world better. The Green Revolution that occurred in the 60s, the 1960s. It used to be, Larry, that we were told that we were going to, one, starve to death and freeze to death. I know that the current generation doesn't have a memory past 1990, okay, but if you go back to the 60s and 70s, you and I were told as children, first of all, we were going to be nuked, but if we sat under our desk, we'd be safe. Right. And 2, we were told we were going to starve to death. And 3, we were going to freeze to death. Starving to death actually was a significant problem until the Green Revolution, where they developed things like gene technology. And I know that is wildly unpopular, especially with people who follow Maha, but these technological advances have created the grocery stores, the full grocery stores that we have today in the first world. And so, again, Bill Gates was part of this disinformation, this fear-mongering. He launched the careers of so many politicians who have based their entire career on this fear-mongering and climate change baloney. So I'm glad to see there's been some changes.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, he spearheaded the idea of eating fake meat so that we can get rid of the cattle industry because of cow emissions. Cut 2, here he is, just 5 years ago.
Was how great a problem bovine flatulence is. Nobody knows how to get rid of how to get cows to stop farting.
Exactly. Or burping. And so there is artificial meat, but that's at a very early stage. If it was a 50% reduction, then you could ignore, leave the cows alone. But because we're trying to avoid the temperature continuing to go up, you do need to go to zero.
Yeah, and again, you need to go to zero was never applied to India or China or the countries that were putting out the worst emissions. Now, fast forward to today, here's Bill Gates, cut 3.
Zero, not just everything should be solely for climate. Wasn't the goal here to improve human lives? Climate is super important, but has to be considered in terms of overall human welfare.
Literally what Bjorn Lomborg has been saying. So you want to help save lives. Right. You get mosquito netting and have people, in sub-Saharan Africa stop burning elephant dung as their fuel source and get them something else, because that's attracting malaria. That's literally what he's been saying, and he's been ostracized from the so-called scientific community. What is to account for this turnaround? Was it science? No, the science is the same. It's always been there. Maybe what's accounting for this is the fact that Bill Gates is now under investigation. His foundation and other 501c3s are being investigated by Chairman Chuck Grassley and the Judiciary Committee for breaking tax laws with regard to their activism, and also getting direct payments from the Chinese Communist Party and their allies. That could be part of it. Who knows? But either way, it's a step in the right direction toward the truth, toward the same kind of news and facts that we've been delivering to you all through the mania. It's 5:24.
We've got a really disturbing story that broke late yesterday of Biden's FBI targeting more conservatives. You are not going to believe this story. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
5:37, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in. And may I say, hola, ¿cómo estás? Buenos dias. Sorry, just getting into practice. Should Gavin Newsom win the presidency in 2028? Just in case, I want to be ready. It's O'Connor and Company coming up at 6:35. Cal Thomas at 7:05. The president of Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts, and at 8:05, the leader of the Republicans down in Richmond, in the House, Terry Gilgore. Larry O'Connor here, Julie Gunlock there. Julie, good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing? Are you all right?
I'm good. I'm good. Did I sound too serious there? Good morning.
Yeah. Sounds super serious. You sound super. More disturbing revelations about what happened under President Otto Penn. The FBI investigation known as Arctic Frost. Now, this began post-January 6th by Christopher Wray at the FBI, and then was eventually handed over to special counsel Jack Smith after Merrick Garland named him as a special investigator against Donald Trump. I want to be clear, this was the investigation not into Grandma walking through the door that was held open by Capitol Police officers who was just touring the rotunda on January 6th and then got, arrested and thrown in jail for 200 days without a hearing and charged with, heinous crimes and their life ruined. No. This was the investigation behind the so-called, puppet masters behind January 6th, the architects of the coup, the people who were really involved in overthrowing our government and introducing the oligarch so that we would shred the Constitution and never have a free and fair election again. This investigation went well past January 6th and was ongoing in 22, 23, and then handed over to Jack Smith, as I mentioned. It turns out, based on redacted documents released by Kash Patel's FBI to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, that the Arctic Frost investigation was not just going after Steve Bannon, let's say, and other figures closely connected to Donald Trump at the time. No, they were going after a gentleman named Ed Corrigan. Now, Ed Corrigan is currently the president of the Conservative Partnership Institute. He had been in charge of policy over at the Heritage Foundation from January 13 to 17. Before that, he worked on Capitol Hill in the Senate for 2 decades, including he started with Jesse Helms. This is an old school, traditional, conservative leader. To suggest that this guy is in some way a radical anarchist, this is a man cut from the Reagan mold, And he was kind of beloved by all factions, sort of like me, Julie. You know, I'm sort of beloved by all members of the conservative movement, no matter how far MAGA you are, or even those who are, you know, somewhat. This is
actually true. I was laughing, but this is true.
Reluctantly skeptical about Trump. Everybody except for the bulwark types. They're not even conservatives.
Yeah, no,
I don't care about them. The FBI was investigating him for treason. There are two things in there are three things in the redacted document that stand out to me. Number one, the redactions, because it appears as though most of the redactions are there to protect the guilty. The names that are redacted here are the people who were involved in this criminal investigation into an innocent American citizen solely because of his politics. That's number one. Number two, one of the indications that Ed Corrigan was responsible for treasonous behavior was that he was, get ready for it. Are you ready, Julie? Here's the charge.
I'm ready.
He was anti-Biden. That's right. He opposed Joe Biden, the President of the United States, which immediately put him in the category of suspicion.
Wow.
That he was basically guilty until proven innocent of treason, being anti-Biden. The other thing that really sticks out to me here is that it's obvious now, if it weren't before, that this entire escapade known as Arctic Frost investigation by the FBI was an investigation in search of a crime. Once again, the FBI, they're supposed to be motivated and charged with investigating criminal behavior because we know that a crime exists. That's not what happened here. There was a suspicion that people were helping Trump, and that was criminal in and of itself, and therefore they decided to investigate all of the people in that circle. We're talking about Rudy Giuliani. We're talking about Mark Meadows, the former congressman and then chief of staff, or former chief of staff of Donald Trump. John Eastman, a constitutional law professor who argued cases before the Supreme Court. Former Trump DOJ official Jeffrey Clark. A sitting congressman, Scott Perry of Pennsylvania. They were all wrapped up and investigated by the FBI because of their associations, not because a crime was committed. Nobody has ever been charged with a crime here.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. And you had voices from across the conservative spectrum yesterday decrying this and demanding some kind of repercussions.
This is enormously frightening. And I want to say also, they're investigating him for treason, but this also is intended to have a chilling effect on conservatives. This is meant to scare us. And it's meant to scare people maybe without the connections and power of this particular person, right? It's obviously Ed Corrigan has connections. He's considered a sort of powerful person in Washington. It's horrible. It's horrible that he was targeted, but it's also meant to have a chilling effect on those who don't have these connections or this power. You will be investigated for treason. This is really scary, and it's this. I mean, again, these people saw what happened to those who were persecuted because of January 6th, walking through the Capitol, invited in.
Right. That's right.
This is intended to kill a movement.
Yes. We hear a lot right now about fascism, authoritarianism, and a chilling effect on political opposition.
Here you go.
The reason you hear a lot about that is because that's exactly what they engaged in. They know it full well. We're going to highlight a little bit more of what they said about Ed Corrigan in this FBI memo and some of the things that the Conservative Partnership Institute was engaged in that was considered treason. It's going to blow your mind. Basically, they were trying to criminalize being a conservative in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
It's 5:44.
This afternoon on the Derek Hunter Show, Bill Gates is telling Democrats to calm down on the hyper rhetoric around climate change, which he funded. We'll talk about it at 3 o'clock on WMAL.
The items in this redacted memo within the FBI targeting Ed Corrigan, the president of the Conservative Partnership Institute, is eye-opening and disturbing. As Molly Hemingway put it, it's insane and divorced from reality. And it tells us the situation at the FBI was a million times worse than even those who think it's unsalvageable believed. Ed Corrigan is one of the most beloved members of the conservative movement across every faction on the right. Again, his resume goes back to Jesse Helms in the Reagan era, Ed Corrigan. Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, who will be joining us at 7:05, said that the fact that this memo exists as an indictment of the FBI, not my friend Ed Corrigan. I hope that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino will look into this right away. In fact, Kash Patel responded almost immediately on social media, saying, every day this FBI is releasing documents like these to give the public full view of what happened, work with Congress to right the wrongs, and hold accountable anyone who acted unethically, period. Corruption like this is being crushed in your federal government day by day. It's a new era. It's important that he said who acted unethically, not illegally, because sadly, in the new federal government's Justice Department and FBI, the way they've been operating for the last couple of decades, this isn't illegal, but it's certainly unethical, and people can at least be exposed for their unethical behavior. Jeff Clark, who was the OMB acting administrator, said that the idea that Ed Corrigan was plotting civil war is bonkers. The people behind Arctic Trust were living out their own deluded fever dreams.
Yes.
They hate Ed because no one knows Senate procedure better than Ed. I saw up close and personal that as someone who took his class in the topic. See, this is the root of it. His class, what was his class? Yeah, at the Conservative Partnership Institute, they would have training exercises for congressional staffers who worked for conservatives in the House and the Senate to teach them how to properly do oversight of the federal government, oversight of the executive branch. They would train conservative staffers how to properly conduct their role, their constitutional role, in legislative oversight over the executive branch, in departments like the FBI. That was his crime, Julie. His crime was to make sure that staffers on Capitol Hill knew how to oversee the wrongdoings of people like the guy who wrote this memo at the FBI.
As I was reviewing this last night, there's something that Molly said. She said, this is so insane and so divorced from reality that it tells us the situation at the FBI is a million times worse than even those who think it's unsalvageable. It makes me realize how important it is that I think that, Trump has 3.5 more years. We got to keep this up. It's like, I'm already thinking to who's next. Is it JD Vance? Is it Marco Rubio? I want this cleaning up. I want these reforms to continue. I also want to ask you a question. You may know this, I don't, but isn't there some question about this coming out of the Seattle office?
Yeah.
Hasn't this particular office been very sort of corrupt?
Listen, Reagan used to say personnel is policy, right? That was
right.
And it's sort of been picked up. That if you're hiring FBI special agents out of the Seattle area, yes, I mean West Coast in general seems to be off the rails when it comes to this kind of thing. Although, I mean, to be fair, the investigation of traditional Catholics originated out of the Richmond, Virginia office. I think there's another term that's been bandied about for decades that may even be more apt, which is the fish rots from the head down. This is a Christopher Wray problem. This is a James Comey problem. This is a Robert Mueller problem. They're the ones who have done a whole lot of this. I just want to point out, I just explained that the Conservative Partnership Institute would train staffers on Capitol Hill to conduct oversight, right? Everybody knows that. That's a public knowledge. Here's how this Seattle FBI agent characterized that. Corrigan wants to build up infrastructure to train people for civil war.
Whoa.
I mean, you talk about language being used in an internal FBI memo. Train people for civil war. Corrigan secretly controls the Freedom Caucus and has plans that are not good for the FBI. Yeah, oversight is not good for the FBI. Listen to this. Corrigan hates the FBI, and the proof, he refers to the FBI as spooks. Everyone refers to people in the intelligence community as spooks. Guess what? People in the intelligence community refer to themselves as spooks.
I want to know if this guy had any problem with the entire defund the police infrastructure that was pretty powerful, okay, a couple years ago. Really?
It's an absolute outrage. I am comforted to know that people like Kash Patel are heading the FBI and is releasing this. But like the rest of you, I am waiting for anyone, to actually be held accountable, not just losing their job and keeping their pension.
Go to jail.
Truly held accountable. It's 5:53.